Good afternoon, New Brunswick, and welcome to today's Wolastoqey Land Claim News Conference with Premier Higgs. We will also be hearing from the Minister of Aboriginal Affairs, Arlene Dunn, as well as the Minister of Natural Resources, Mike Holland. So it will be a big news conference. It sounds like there are a lot of journalists in on this. You will probably be brought up to speed. I imagine there will be 3 speakers before questions, obviously, with the Premier and 2 ministers in on the news conference. The Wolastoqey Nation has filed a land claim against New Brunswick corporations for resource extraction of their land. So this is what we will be hearing about the government's response from this today, based on the latest news yesterday. I guess 20% around of about 18 different businesses operate on 20% of land that is claimed by the Wolastoqey Nation. They're asking for compensation for this. So we will be hearing from the Premier and the 2 ministers about their response at this moment in time, though this is something that has been, it's an ongoing case. So to what degree we will hear new information today, I'll be hearing with you at the same time. I posted moments earlier too, if you're following on our Facebook page, that there will be also an update tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. This will be with the Labour Minister, Trevor Holder, and that will be regarding minimum wage update. So whether there is a raise in minimum wage in New Brunswick, that will be seen tomorrow at 9 a.m. So you will be joined by me again tomorrow. I have had a lot of questions come in about when there will be a COVID-19 update this week. We haven't had one yet, so I would say tomorrow at this point. I thought there would actually be one today, but given that the Omicron variant is a cause for worldwide concern right now, and many of you have written in your questions for Dr. Russell, Minister Shepherd, and Premier Higgs about this new variant and New Brunswick's efforts to protect New Brunswickers against this new variant. I did write in a question to Bruce, the moderator and spokesperson for public health yesterday, just based on the overwhelming concern New Brunswickers had about whether or not New Brunswick was able to test for this variant. They are, and they are able to at the lab in Moncton. And what Bruce said is that anytime there's like a cause for travel concerns that might see this being present. If you are watching this update right now on TV, I guess you're not. I was going to say the TV just went to a different. Oh, there we are. We're back. My apologies. But he said they are testing for travelers that have any kind of connection to a place of origin. However, if you are following COVID-19 and the I'm going to get it wrong, Omicron variant. Now, they said it originally originated, they thought, in South Africa. However, there has been testing that reveals it may have been in the Netherlands, even prior to these cases that were discovered in South Africa. So really, it is at this point going around the world, and that is what we have seen with variants. Just because they're not necessarily detected, some countries have better testing available to them, and they're able to detect things earlier. It doesn't mean they're not present in other places, though. So Canada has had 4 provinces so far: BC, Alberta, Ontario, and Quebec. So 4 provinces have detected cases of the Omicron variant thus far, and it really is just a matter of time before we hear about more cases in other parts of the country. We are expecting an update, though, this week to what degree we should be concerned about this variant. I know they're saying not to panic at this point in time, but with the holidays coming up, obviously, travel restrictions could be a possibility, and I know that many of you are concerned about how this would potentially affect your holiday plans, or lack thereof, as it turns out to be. So again, if you are just joining us now, and you've seen that we are live streaming on Facebook. We're live on TV as well, if you prefer to watch on your TV channel. If you do have questions today regarding the Wolastoqey land claim for Premier Higgs, Minister Dunn, or Minister Holland, please feel free to write them on Facebook, or if you're watching on television, you can email to news. The email is just below my name on the screen right now, news@CHCO.TV, or directly to me at Vicky, VICKI.Hogarth, HOGARTH @CHCO.TV. Now, you can send a question right now if you want. I'm still waiting to find out from you the information we hear in the conference before I decide what to ask today. There's a lot of journalists on the call. I don't think I will be until the end of the conference anyway, based on roll call. So if you do have a question, feel free to submit it now. And I will have a chance, hopefully, to even take a look or follow on Facebook and see what your questions and concerns are for this meeting. And also you can feel free to email me questions if you have questions for Dr. Russell or Minister Shepherd or even the Premier about COVID-19. We're still waiting for the numbers to come in today. I'll just check my email now in case anything has come in at the moment. No, I don't have anything at the moment for the new case count. I know that we are apparently trending downwards in terms of case numbers, but again, given that we were at such a high earlier this fall, trending downward still means very high double-digit case numbers every day. So the likelihood of this affecting holidays could be, I'm just checking, there's Bruce in on. It's still something that people are concerned about. So likely there will be a COVID-19 update. I will guess either Thursday or obviously Friday too as a possibility this week. So if you have your COVID-19 questions as well, feel free to write them in. As you can hear, the roll call is on the phone at the moment, and I think that they're still getting organized to get going. But I think if many of you are used to some of our last minute conferences, they can get started later than others. So I appreciate you bearing with me and waiting with me before the conference starts and just engaging in the conversation. I am trying to follow online with some of the questions online, and obviously some of the biggest issues we have in New Brunswick go all over the gamut right now, from COVID-19 to post-strike issues. I will mention that if you are watching in the Charlotte County area, we do a regular telethon every year called Santa's Helpers that, due to the labor strike, we've had to postpone until December 12th. It was originally scheduled to run this past Sunday, but due to the strike and the need to film school choirs, which Patrick, our station manager, and Norm Richard, who's one of the great volunteers at CHCO, they have both been going around Southwest New Brunswick filming choirs for the December 12th telethon. But we are going into the conference room right now, so if you have questions, email me and I will see you after.
Everyone, bonjour tout le monde. Thank you for joining us today. We'll begin today's news conference with a few remarks from the Premier and ministers before taking questions from the media. Je vous remercie d'être venu aujourd'hui. Nous commencerons la conférence de presse aujourd'hui avec quelques remarques du Premier ministre ainsi que les ministres avant de répondre aux questions des journalistes. Premier, let's go ahead.
Merci. Good afternoon. Bonjour. Thank you for joining us today. Merci d'être là aujourd'hui. We've called this media conference to discuss the new land claim that has been filed this week by 6 of the First Nation chiefs in our province. As a reminder, New Brunswick is home to 16 First Nations communities, including the Passamaquoddy. This claim is being driven by 6 Wolastoqey communities and is very serious and has far-reaching implications. New Brunswickers have a right to understand the facts. Les gens de New Brunswick ont le droit de comprendre les faits. After all, the land specified in this claim is not owned by politicians, or even by the government in every case. It is land that belongs to New Brunswickers, that people paid for and continue to pay for through annual taxes. While we are still reviewing the claim, here's what we do know. It is large and far-reaching. Les demandes sont vastes, et elles sont en grande portée. It is a claim for a title to 60% of the province's land. These are lands that they would like to control in some form through ownership and perhaps even operating the businesses that currently own and operate on those lands. It is precedent-setting for all of Canada. Never before has a claim of this nature attempted to take control of land that is privately owned. It continues to lack clarity that New Brunswickers deserve. Les demandes ne sont pas claires. Les gens de New Brunswick méritent que les choix soient clairs. It is a new claim that replaces the old claim from December 2020 that was vague and unclear. In response to the original claim, our government wanted to know exactly which lands they were claiming because we have an obligation to protect all New Brunswickers. Through the courts, we requested that the chiefs provide greater transparency. While this new claim names specific forestry companies, as well as NB Power, it still does not define the impact or protect the rights of all New Brunswickers. In the last 24 hours, we've heard the chiefs and the media try to give reassurance to homeowners and residents, but the fact is their legal documents do not provide that same reassurance. Here's what else we know. It strikes at the heart of our forestry industry. Minister Holland will speak with you soon about the impact and consequences of that, as well as the implications of NB Power being named. Ultimately, this afternoon is about helping New Brunswickers understand what is going on and the importance of it to our future. While this is a matter before the courts, I cannot stand by as Premier and just let things unfold, knowing that most New Brunswickers are unaware. This impacts job, land ownerships, private investments, and our province's entire economy. Ces causes aura un incident sur les emplois, les propriétés, les investissements privés et l'économie de notre province. And I would argue that it also may impact some of the basic principles that our society runs on when it comes to individuals saving money, buying land, building a business, and having certainty in the assets they actually own. This claim creates tremendous uncertainty and requires our government's full attention. As I've said before, it is my job as Premier to look out for the best interests of all New Brunswickers and to plan a future where we indeed all prosper together because we're all working for the right reasons, to do the right thing by all citizens as we build and rebuild and grow our province. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you, Premier. We'll now hear a few words from Minister Holland. Nous allons maintenant entendre quelques mots du Ministre Holland.
Thank you very much, Mr. Premier. Bonjour et merci pour cette opportunité à parler avec nous aujourd'hui. Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour. As the Minister of Natural Resources and Energy Development, I would like to talk today about the forestry sector in New Brunswick. The latest claim that has been filed is very concerning to our forestry sector in general. Forestry is the backbone of this province's economy in many ways, especially in rural New Brunswick. We therefore take this claim very seriously and are currently reviewing the claim in detail in an attempt to fully understand the implications. At a high level, based on what we are seeing in the media reports, the chiefs are proposing that they become landlords for private lands currently being used by industry. This would have far-reaching and very serious implications. Ça, c'est un sujet très important pour l'industrie forêt au Nouveau-Brunswick, mais aussi pour tous les citoyens de la province de Nouveau-Brunswick. Let's talk for a moment about the forestry industry. This claim names large purporters of forestry in the province of New Brunswick, but it's also your neighbor that owns a harvester. It's also the private woodlot owner that's working to move their product through the supply chain. It's also the small mill that makes value-added products that employs local men and women all throughout the province of New Brunswick. That combination of the forestry industry contributes $2 billion to our provincial economy. It is one of our top exports, ensuring ongoing trade with over 60 different countries. The strength of this sector keeps food on the table for 1 in 14 New Brunswickers whose jobs are linked to the health and the growth of this sector. In total, over 22,000 New Brunswickers are directly or indirectly employed by forestry. And that's a lot of hard hats and lunch boxes that head out the door each and every day to make a living for hardworking New Brunswickers. It's nothing to take lightly. Every community benefits from the forestry supply chain, from forestry and logging to pulp and paper, wood products, and other valued-added manufacturing. Like I said, that's the harvester, that's the shift worker, that's the small business owner that has built their livelihood around forest products. More than 40 mills operate across this province and make significant differences to the livelihood of families here in the province. Over 600 companies in New Brunswick operate in the forest sector directly, and that number grows to 2,500 businesses when we consider those working across the entire supply chain. That is the big companies, sure, but it trickles down to everything up to and including the gas bar where we fill up on the way to work in the forestry industry, to the convenience store that we stop at on the way home. Importantly, the forests in questions are managed to sustain the long-term supply of timber and economic benefits from those forests. All of these lands are certified by third-party auditors to be sustainably managed forests. But it doesn't stop there. We are in the midst of making historic conservation moves that, albeit focus on Crown land, those practices extend to biodiverse and ecologically sustainable forestry management objectives on the entire forestry footprint. So given what's at stake for many New Brunswickers, it's our government's responsibility to ensure that we fully understand this claim and to be very transparent about what is unfolding before the courts. The claim also seeks title to lands owned and operated by NB Power. It is unclear whether they are seeking the buildings, the lands surrounding the buildings, or the space where transmission lines cross, which could be any home, river, or airspace in the province. NB Power is focused on providing reliable and affordable electricity for all New Brunswickers, and this claim could potentially compromise that. Let's remember that NB Power is already being challenged by aggressive environmental targets set by the federal government, and this claim is adding further pressure to keeping rates affordable for all New Brunswickers. The forestry sector has deep roots that have held the province together since its inception. It is a sector filled with New Brunswickers that we stand behind and are very proud of. Most of them have maintained lifelong commitments to operating best-in-class companies and employment experiences right here at home. I want to thank them, and I want to reassure them that the government takes this very seriously, and we will continue to seek clarity in order to protect their interests. Merci, thank you.
To say a few words. J'invite maintenant inviter le ministre Dunn pour poser ou parler un peu plus.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Bonjour. Quay. It's been just over a year since I was named Minister of Aboriginal Affairs. In the past 12 months, I have visited First Nations communities and I have spoken with leaders on a number of occasions. I'm proud to be the minister of a department of caring, hard-working individuals who work daily with their counterparts in all First Nations in New Brunswick to provide valuable programs and services to all of these communities. Some of the programs and services include things like GNB funds numerous training and development projects that are aimed at addressing employment gaps and improving labor market access for First Nations. GNB supports over 100 First Nation clients linked to the Community Adult Learning Program. Education is also working on having essential skills programs in the 13 most common languages spoken in New Brunswick, as well as in Mi'kmaq and the Wolastoqey languages. GNB is providing mental health and addiction services support to a number of communities. Health authorities throughout the province have taken steps to educate their employees on residential schools and the devastating impacts of those schools. Justice and Public Safety is working with communities on policing and community safety and wellness. There are many other services and programs which would take significant time for me to review. I am willing to share that information with whomever requests it. I believe there is a misconception in the public that there is no relationship with First Nations or any work being done. This could not be further from the truth. Our door is always open and will continue to remain open. Government is in regular discussions with First Nations on a host of topics, including economic development, mental health and wellness, advancing Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action, housing, and community investments. The Department of Aboriginal Affairs is focused on working with First Nations on mutual goals, interests, and objectives. The province is dedicated to ensuring its relationship with First Nations is respectful and based on sound principles that provide real benefits to the members of each First Nation community. Our government wants a New Brunswick where all First Nations communities prosper. Since April, all First Nations were invited to enter into negotiations for a new economic partnership nation-to-nation partnership. In fact, we are actively negotiating with groups that represent half of the province's First Nation population, and I am very optimistic. I want to thank the Mi'kmaq Chiefs for their leadership. This relationship should not be politicized. And sadly, it appears that that is just what the Wolastoqey Chiefs seem to be doing. This is very unfortunate, and it's very sad for all New Brunswickers and all First Nations. If we want meaningful change to help all communities, we must work together through these challenges. As Minister, I remain committed, and our government remains committed to working through any challenges in order to achieve a respectful, meaningful relationship with all our First Nations. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Welewan, Welalim.
Thank you, Minister. Merci. We'll now proceed with questions from the media. Nous allons maintenant procéder aux questions des journalistes. Each reporter will have one question and one follow-up. You are invited to ask your question in the official language of your choice. Chaque journaliste aura une question et un suivi, et vous êtes invité à poser vos questions dans la langue officielle de votre choix. Thank you. Merci. That said, we will begin with Rachel Huizinga from All New Brunswick.
Thank you. This question is for the Premier. I'm wondering if you can specify which parts of the claim you say are lacking clarity for New Brunswickers. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. And I guess, although, as I mentioned here, we've seen assurances from some of the chiefs that it does not impact private lands other than the named companies, the claim does not clarify that. It does not suggest that. And so the point of what does this initiate? At this point in time, it is unprecedented in our country. It is the first time that we've seen claims on private lands. And then the concern is, of course, is the claim on 60% of the province and all of the many private lands that this could lead to. So, I think it's the saying one thing, but the clarity in the claim itself is just not there.
You have a follow-up question.
Yes, I do. I'm wondering if you can say whether the province would dispute the claim that a lot of the properties owned by these corporations were either given to the corporations at no cost or for very low prices.
Well, I heard that same those comments made, but I think those comments are unfounded, and I can't speak to what the transactions might have been at the time. But I think that's what this is all about, is establishing, just what is real and what's not real. And I think the very foundation that the claims are being made on private lands and can be made on private lands of any kind, ultimately, is the whole issue of this court challenge. And I'll just go back to it is being unprecedented in our country. It is a situation that impacts every single landowner in our province. And at this point in time, it singles out a few, but it does not exclude the many. And so it's like, where does this stop? And what is the real claim and what's the validity of it? And of course, we know that the claim involves 60% of the province.
Premier, Frédéric Camarano, Radio-Canada.
Oui, bonjour. J'aimerais savoir dans un premier temps, et la question s'adresse aux deux ministres ou au premier ministre, peu importe qui veut y répondre. J'aimerais savoir comment vous décrivez votre relation avec les Premières Nations de la province.
Thank you for the question. I'll actually respond to that because my job is actually to build that relationship. And I would describe the relationship as one that is building, it is actually improving. But I would also say this, you can only have a relationship with people who actually want to have a relationship with you. So I would say to you that First Nations in the province of New Brunswick who want a relationship with myself as a minister in my department do reach out. We talk about what their concerns are, we talk about their priorities, we talk about how to collaborate and how to work together. However, if there's no communication and it's only one side, then it's very difficult to build that relationship.
Frédéric, est-ce que vous avez une suivi?
Oui, tout à fait. J'aimerais savoir si vous pensez qu'il est possible de régler cette question à l'extérieur des tribunaux par votre relation, par exemple.
Thank you for the question. And, you know, we are hopeful that that is exactly what we'd like to do. And as I mentioned in my speaking notes at the outset, back, you know, several months ago, we actually extended that olive branch to all First Nations to say, please come to the table. Let's negotiate what a new partnership looks like. And that has been extended to these same individual chiefs who have filed this land claim. And we hope that they'll actually take us up on the offer and come to the table. But I can assure you that that offer is there. It's going to remain there. And we're hopeful that they'll do that.
Angel Moore, APTN. Angel, can you hear me? Natalie Sturgeon, Global.
Hi, thanks. I'm sort of wondering what the concern is with the forestry management. Yesterday, they did say that they would be sort of open to a shared management model. Why is it so concerning to see them not only tackling the province, but also the forestry companies?
Thank you very much for that question. And the conversation about managing forests.
Hello, thank you for taking my question. Yes, can you hear me?
Angel?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but we'll have to come back to you after Minister Holland responds to Natalie Sturgeon.
They did say that they would be sort of open to a shared management model. Why is it so concerning to see them not only tackling the province, but also the forestry companies?
Thank you very much for that question. What's at issue here is the discussion about land ownership. When it comes to management of forest, the conversation surrounding the way that things are handled, then that's a separate issue. But the issue related to the claim surrounding the ownership of the land, that is where we need to dig into that, because you got to understand that when you're talking about private land owners, one of the bedrocks of their business ability to grow is stability, and the very nature of the title of who owns the land can have far and wide-reaching ramifications as to how that business can build, how it can seek and receive financing. There's a variety of different factors there where if land claim title and ownership is of concern, then that presents a problem to the business as it relates to the trajectory and course and the plain ability for their business to not only operate, but to grow and expand here in the province of New Brunswick.
Natalie, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, thank you. I'm sort of wondering about the relationship
Financing, there's a variety of different factors there where if land claim title and ownership
Sorry,
is
I
of
can hear some feedback.
concern, then that.
Natalie, please go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes?
Hi.
Okay. I'm just sort of wondering about the relationship. I know Minister Dunn sort of touched on that, but it is a strained relationship.
There's a ton of feedback here.
Can you just speak to that a bit more? Sorry, I can hear some feedback.
Then that.
I'm going to take
Natalie,
just a
please go ahead.
brief second here. Natalie, we're going to take just a second here.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just sort of wondering about the relationship. I know Minister Dunn sort of touched on that, but it is a strained relationship.
There's a ton of feedback
Everybody,
here.
if you could mute your microphones for us for a second, just while we sort a couple of things out here. Thank you. Please keep your microphones on mute unless you're actually asking the question. S'il vous plaît, gardez vos microphones mutés à part de poser des questions aux participants aujourd'hui. So with that said, Natalie, we'll go ahead with your follow-up question again.
Hi. Sorry. Minister Dunn, I'm just wondering if you could just go a little bit further on that relationship, because it does seem to be strained, whether that be a fair assessment in your words or not. Could you just elaborate on that? Or
Sure, Natalie, thanks for the question. And, I think that's a good way to frame some of the relationships, but definitely not all of them. And as I said earlier, nobody wakes up every day and wants to have a bad relationship with people. You want to go to work, you want to do a good job, you want to work with people, you want to further whatever their causes are, you want to actually advocate for them, you want to have that collaboration, and you want to help. And I can tell you, with the First Nations in the province who have reached out to me and, have said, look, at Minister Dunn, we need this, or we need that, or we need to discuss this. I'm always open to having those discussions. I've helped them on a number of fronts. We're building good relationships. We're building good opportunities here in the province. With some First Nations, I'm going to be completely honest, I don't have that opportunity. And that's sad because, as I said, nobody wants to come to work every day and not have the opportunity to do a good job for the people that they represent. And that's where it's at. So I would say that, the terminology strained is good terminology, but I would also say this, it's not on my part. I'm open to working with all First Nations, and I'm easily accessible, and I actually want to work to improve First Nations relationships for First Nations and the province. I also believe that having good community relationships with First Nations will help every single New Brunswicker, not just First Nations.
Thank you, Minister. We'll go back to Angel Moore now, APTN. Just a reminder as well, everybody, please keep your microphone muted.
I'm open to working with.
Hi, I hope you can hear me. I turned down my volume so there's no
I
feedback.
actually want to work to
Is that
improve
okay?
First Nations relationships for First Nations and the province.
Can you hear me?
That having good community relationships with First Nations.
I hope you
will
can hear
help
me.
every
Can you please,
not just
Angel,
First-
please? We're hearing what's happening right now. The feedback that we're getting is coming through your computer. Muted.
Okay.
I'm open to working with.
Hi, I hope you can hear me. I turned down my volume so there's no
I
feedback.
actually want.
Is that okay?
Relationships for First Nations and the province.
Can you hear me?
It's just a brief delay here.
Community relationships with First Nations.
I hope you
will
can hear
help
me.
every
Can you please,
not just
Angel, please?
Hello, yes?
We're hearing what's happening right now. The feedback that we're getting is coming through your computer.
Okay, I don't have the
Okay.
YouTube turned on.
Hi, I hope you can hear me. I turned up.
How's that? Is that working?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, thank goodness. Hello, this is Angel Moore from APTN News. With the lands title, the Wolastoqey and the Mi'kmaq have not unceded their territory or surrendered their territory, and they are just asserting their treaty rights and asking after over 200 years for the treaty rights to be honored by the Crown and the province, and respectfully claiming their land back. They have been very clear that they do not intend to disrupt the economy, and they have been very clear that they do not intend to disrupt any private land homeowners, even with compensation from private homeowners. They have been very clear that they are seeking compensation from the Crown and the province and working collaboratively with the lumber companies and corporations that have profited for generations off of their resources. So I do not understand what the issue is, and they have said that they are willing to work with the province and industry collaboratively. And today's press conference seems not productive to open communications with the Indigenous people of New Brunswick? Would the Premier care to respond?
Yes, I will respond. So in relation to clarity, I think it's important to point out that we did not initiate the land claims and take the province to court. Equally, despite the assertions that you mentioned, the land claim does not have that clarity. And the assertion that private lands of the nature of 60% in the case of these claims are all up for grabs. I mean, it is not clear in the challenge that is in fact not the case. So you can have assertions outside of the court challenge, but then the reality is what it says on the actual claim itself. And I think the other point is the very basis of all of this is exactly, what is in dispute here? What are the requirements for and obligations under the treaty rights? Because we all want to respect that. There isn't any debate on that. But if that wasn't a debatable item, then why would there even be a necessity for a claim? I think that there lies the foundation and the root of the discussion, is that this needs to be clarified. And this obviously has never been clarified in the country, because a claim on private land is indeed unprecedented for Canada. And so, there's discussion about it's kind of commonly known. Well, that is not a legal term, and it is in terms of what is the basis, so we can all ensure we expect and respect the rights of every individual, and especially the First Nations community.
Angel, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, in a press conference yesterday, the Wolastoqey chief said that they filed the court case as a last resort and were open to negotiations and speaking to resolve this issue. So I guess both sides are sort of saying the same thing. Is this? Do you think this is on the path to open communication and reconciliation, or is this starting to be a battle of seeing things differently? Because the chief said yesterday that their treaty rights were not being honored and respected.
So I guess I'll just come back to that fundamental understanding is that we all want to honor the treaty rights, and so it is a discussion and a clarification on exactly what is to be honored there, because what is and the fact that we all want to do that. I don't think there's any dispute in that, as certainly both sides agreeing that we want to honor the treaty rights and obligations that we have as a nation and to the First Nations. I think what is at the issue here is that 60% of the province is being claimed. And that's the entire 60% and all the properties that lie within that. So while there are nuances that have been established in this second claim that's been put forward in replacing the original one, the fact that 60% of the province is still in the view here, it's okay. What does that mean? Where do you start? What's the value? Everybody's house, everybody's property, everything that's owned in the province. What is the value of all that? So, we are talking billions and billions of dollars here, even trillions of dollars. So is that where we start? Is it $1 trillion or $2 trillion? And then we start negotiating there. So, you really have to understand what are your obligations and what are the sides of the ditches that you're trying to determine? Because otherwise, how do you have a basis for having a meaningful discussion? And I think that's where we are right now, is trying to determine what is the basis.
Adam Heuris, Brunswick News.
Oh, thanks, Tyler. Premier, you've laid out a lot of problems you believe this is going to cause in New Brunswick, taxpayers, forestry industry. But what are you going to do about it? Are you adding a new legal team? Are you beefing up an existing legal team? Are you going to do everything you can to get a settlement that's affordable for the province? Are you going to fight it outright? I mean, today has to be about more than just what problems you have.
Well, I think defining the extent of what's being claimed here is a very important part of understanding. It's important that every New Brunswicker understands exactly what is at stake here, because this isn't a small issue in any stroke of the imagination. It is unprecedented, as I've said many times here, unprecedented in Canada. I do have an obligation as Premier to represent all citizens of this province, and therefore fairness and equity across the province is of utmost concern for me. I do have an obligation to respect the rights and the treaty obligations, which I've stated clearly. That is certainly what we will do. But we need to have clarity on all of that. And so how do we do that? We do that through the only means that we have, and it is to, in the current claim that is being placed and court challenge, is to defend the rights of the province for all citizens. So we do end up with a fair and equitable resolution. I guess, am I prepared to work with First Nations? Absolutely. Am I prepared to do the right thing by all New Brunswickers? It is a must. As Premier, I must look at the big picture. I must look at how we protect the rights of individual landowners, individual private citizens, and I must ensure that we all can grow together. And so it isn't as easy as just simply sitting down in a room and say, you know, how much money will this take to settle this? It is understanding just exactly what is there to be settled, so we're all clear, and then we move from there.
I have a follow-up question.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Tyler. So, I mean, hoping you can clarify if that means adding more lawyers to the Attorney General's office. But my second question is the claim makes it fairly clear what property First Nations want. It lists literal PIN numbers of the property, and then for the remainder, within that 60% you're talking about, it wants compensation. I just want to know how that's not clear. It seems quite clear there. And further, you know, I guess you touched on it for a second there, but is it not the cost of the compensation that's the larger, I guess, point that needs to be addressed here?
Well, I think I went through that in a previous answer, saying that, you know, if we're evaluating properties all within 60% of the province, and all this within a heavily populated portion of the province, you know, we are talking in the sense of trillions of dollars. I mean, so I to say, is that something you start negotiating on, or do you determine what are your obligations here in this process? That is what's being challenged in the courts. So, you know, it isn't for me to just say, okay, here we go, there's 60% of the province at stake. Can we have assessors go out and determine what that's worth? And then we start from there. That's not for me to decide. That's what's to be decided in this court challenge is what is being asked for. Is that a requirement based on the treaties that exist? And how should we manage this going forward so that we do the right thing by all citizens? So you may think that's clear in the claim, but in fact, it's a huge, huge ask. And that is something that is almost to the point of unmanageable for a province our size, but for a province of any size, because it's unprecedented. And we shouldn't take this lightly. We cannot take this lightly. If it was easy, we wouldn't be in court dealing with it, but it is not easy.
Are you adding more lawyers?
Well, I'm not defining the requirements under the legal system. What I'm saying here is that we have an obligation to all New Brunswickers to defend, you know, everyone's rights, because we all have rights here in the province, and it's my obligation as Premier to defend those rights equitably across the province. So we'll work through what's necessary to do that.
Simon Delattre, Lac des Nouvelles. Simon?
Oui, pas de questions pour le moment.
OK, parfait, merci. Eric Jingles, Buzz Local. Vicky Hogarth, CHCO-TV.
Thank you, Tyler. Premier Higgs, you say that negotiating is an option. So what are the next steps in opening up a productive conversation, and what would be the logical next steps be in moving forward?
Well, I think I probably, you know, covered that in relation to understanding what are we negotiating here, because if we're saying we're negotiating the value of 60% of the province and all of the property that exists within it, you know, that is a huge issue, and it's so what indeed are the parameters around the negotiation, and so there isn't clarity as how big this can be in relation to what's being claimed. Right today, it's on a number of companies. but tomorrow it could be on a number of more companies. So there's no limits here other than it's 60% of the province. And so we have to have clarity around that. Or what do we negotiate? And that's what will be determined through the court process.
Vicky, do you have a follow-up?
I do, Tyler. It's for Minister Dunn. Minister Dunn, as the Minister of Aboriginal Affairs, are you consulting right now or collaborating with New Brunswick's new Systemic Racism Commissioner, Dr. Varma? And if so, in what ways?
So, thank you for the question, Vicki. I'm actually not collaborating with the Commissioner. I would say that she has obviously an independent role to play here with the government of New Brunswick. However, I'm open to helping in any way that I can. I think that most know that, I have integral ties to the Black community in St. John and also with Black Lives Matter and other organizations. So if there's any assistance or anything that she needs with respect to, making those introductions, I'm certainly prepared to do it, but I don't collaborate with the Commissioner.
Minister, thank you, Vicky. Final questions here from Allison Sampson with CTV. Allison,
good afternoon.
Go ahead.
About that. Yep, sorry there. Just wondering if you have any plans to meet and speak with the Wolastoqey chiefs for the Premier. Sorry.
And we've sent letters to all the Wolastoqey chiefs in that regard, to the affirmative, that we would be interested to meet with them and hopefully do that before the end of the year. And that's been our response. So it was based on a request they made to us a few weeks ago.
Thank you. A question, again, back to Allison for her follow-up.
And what are you hoping those talks will achieve at that time?
Well, I guess the point is there was a request for us to meet about how I think we manage ongoing relationships, how we continue with the programs that exist today and the many programs that the minister oversees and it works with different departments and how we continue that to ensure that the First Nations communities are being supported and that their programs are actually enhanced and that we can actually grow those communities in a way that they want to see happen as we do as well. So I would anticipate these discussions will be around ongoing relationships with many of the programs that exist and how we can continue those in an effective way for both parties.
Thank you, everyone. Merci tout le monde. That concludes today's news conference. Ça se conclut la conférence de presse aujourd'hui.
That concludes today's Wolastoqey land claim news conference with Premier Higgs, Minister Dunn, and Minister Holland. I'm Vicki Hogarth at the CHCO News Desk. I'll join you next time.
A news and public affairs production of CHCO-TV, New Brunswick's only source for independent community television.